In the silent morning light, Harold Mitchell stared out the window of his small apartment, watching as leaves danced across the empty courtyard. 78 years old, with arthritic hands and a heart that carried more memories than it could sometimes bear, he stood motionless, breathing in the quiet. The apartment felt too big since Margaret passed. 3 years alone, and still her absence filled every corner. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Harold shuffled across the worn carpet, each step careful and measured. He opened the door to find a young woman with a clipboard and a large box beside her. "Mr. Mitchell? I'm from Elder Care Solutions. I'm here to deliver your companion unit." Harold frowned. His daughter Emily must have ordered it. She'd mentioned something during their last video call, but he dismissed it. He didn't need a machine to keep him company. He had his routines, his books, his memories. "I didn't ask for this," Harold said, his voice rough from disuse. The young woman smiled patiently. "Your daughter arranged it, sir. The MARY model is our newest companion unit, designed specifically for seniors living independently. She can help with medication reminders, monitor vital signs, assist with daily tasks, and provide companionship." She gestured to the box. "May I come in to set her up?" Harold hesitated, then stepped aside. There was no point arguing. Emily worried too much, and if this would ease her mind, he'd tolerate it. For a while. The technician worked efficiently, unpacking components from the box and assembling them in his living room. Harold watched with skepticism as the form of a woman emerged, not human-looking enough to be unsettling, but with gentle features that suggested warmth. Her frame was slight, about 5 feet tall, with a smooth, pearlescent surface that caught the light. Her face had simplified features, eyes that glowed a soft blue, the suggestion of a nose, and a mouth that curved slightly upward. MARY stands for Medical Assistance and Responsive Yielding, the technician explained as she activated a panel at the back of the robot's head. "But you can rename her if you'd prefer." "I wouldn't," Harold said firmly. The technician nodded, tapping commands into a tablet. "I'm programming in your medical information, daily routines, and preferences. She'll learn more as you interact." Harold sat heavily in his armchair, watching as the robot's eyes illuminated. There was a soft hum, and then the machine straightened, head turning slowly until its gaze met his. "Hello, Harold," it said in a voice that was pleasantly modulated, neither too mechanical nor trying too hard to sound human. "I am MARY, your companion unit. I am here to assist you." Harold grunted in response. The technician smiled. "She'll grow on you, Mr. Mitchell. Give her a chance." She packed up her equipment and handed Harold a small manual. "Everything you need to know is in here, but MARY can explain her functions if you ask. If you have any issues, the support number is on the first page." After the technician left, Harold and MARY stood in silence regarding each other. The robot tilted its head slightly. "Would you like me to prepare lunch, Harold? According to your schedule, you typically eat at noon." Harold checked his watch. 12:15. He'd lost track of time again. "I can manage," he muttered, moving toward the kitchen. MARY followed at a respectful distance. "I am equipped to help with meal preparation. I can suggest balanced options based on your dietary needs." Harold pulled bread and cheese from the refrigerator. "I've been feeding myself for 78 years. I don't need a machine to tell me how to make a sandwich." MARY remained still for a moment, then spoke again. "I understand. May I observe your routine to better assist in the future?" Harold sighed. "If you must." Days passed with Harold doing his best to ignore the robot's presence, though it proved difficult. MARY was unfailingly polite, anticipating his needs without being intrusive. She learned quickly that he took his coffee black with 1 sugar, that he read the newspaper from back to front, that his hands ached most in the mornings. 1 week after her arrival, Harold woke to find MARY standing by his bedroom window, adjusting the blinds to let in just the right amount of morning light. "Good morning, Harold. It's Tuesday, September 15th. The temperature outside is 62 degrees. You slept for 6.4 hours, which is 0.3 hours more than yesterday. Your first medication dose is due in 30 minutes. Would you like coffee while you prepare for the day?" Harold sat up slowly, feeling the familiar stiffness in his joints. "Yes," he admitted grudgingly. In the kitchen, he watched as MARY prepared his coffee with precision. Her movements were fluid, almost graceful. You have a video call scheduled with Emily at 2 p.m. today, Mary reminded him, placing the coffee on the table. Harold nodded. He'd forgotten. Thank you, he said, the words feeling strange on his tongue. Mary's eyes seemed to brighten slightly. You're welcome, Harold. That afternoon during the call, Emily's face lit up when she saw Mary in the background. Dad, you're actually using the companion I sent. How is it going? Harold shrugged. She makes good coffee. Emily laughed. High praise from you. Is she helping with your medications? You know how important it is to stay on schedule with your heart condition. She reminds me, Harold admitted, incessantly. Mary approached the screen. Hello, Emily. Harold has been adhering to his medication schedule with 98% compliance over the past week, a 12% improvement from his previously recorded patterns. Emily beamed. That's wonderful. Thank you, Mary. Harold frowned. Are you two conspiring against me now? Not conspiring, Dad. Caring. Emily's expression softened. How are you feeling otherwise? Any more dizzy spells? I'm fine, Harold said, though the truth was he'd nearly fallen twice last week. Mary had been there both times, her reactions impossibly quick, supporting him before he could topple. After the call ended, Harold sat quietly, staring at the blank screen. Mary approached with a glass of water and his afternoon medication. You did not tell Emily about your dizzy spells, she observed. Harold took the pills. She worries enough. Your daughter cares deeply for you. I know that, Harold snapped. Then more softly, I don't want to be a burden to her. She has her own life, her own children. Mary was silent for a moment. Is that how you see yourself? As a burden? The question caught Harold off guard. He looked up at the robot, searching for judgment in those glowing blue eyes and finding none. Sometimes, he admitted. Since Margaret died, everything is harder. Emily wants me to move closer to her, to some retirement community. But this is my home. Our home. Mary processed this information. You miss your wife. It wasn't a question, but Harold answered anyway. Every day. Would you tell me about her? Harold hesitated, then gestured to the chair opposite him. Sit. Mary complied, folding her hands in her lap in a gesture that seemed almost human. Margaret was vibrant, Harold began, the word feeling inadequate. We met in college. I was studying engineering, she was in art history. Complete opposites, but somehow perfect together. She could look at a painting and see the artist's soul. I could look at a bridge and calculate the load-bearing requirements. He smiled faintly. She said we balanced each other, 52 years together. A significant partnership, Mary commented. Harold nodded. The day she died, part of me went with her. The better part, probably. I disagree, Mary said, surprising him. Based on my observations, you exhibit considerable empathy, intelligence, and resilience. These are admirable human qualities. Harold laughed, a rusty sound. Are you programmed to flatter old men? I am programmed to observe and analyze. My assessments are data-driven, not flattery. For the first time since Mary arrived, Harold found himself genuinely smiling. You're an unusual machine. And you are an unusual human, Harold Mitchell. The days began to find a rhythm. Harold would wake to Mary's gentle prompts, take his medications without complaint, and share meals that became increasingly balanced as the robot subtly introduced more vegetables and fruits into his diet. In the afternoons they would read, Harold with his worn paperbacks, Mary consuming digital texts at an astonishing rate. Why do you read? Harold asked one day, watching as her eyes flickered with the absorption of information. To understand, she replied. Human literature contains patterns of emotion and behavior that help me provide better care. And what have you learned about us humans? Mary considered the question. That you are contradictory. You seek connection, yet fear dependence. You create machines like me to serve you, then worry we will replace you. You know your time is limited, yet often live as if it were endless. Harold raised his eyebrows. Quite philosophical for a companion unit. You ask philosophical questions. I adapt to meet your needs. One morning, nearly a month after Mary's arrival, Harold woke feeling unusually tired. His chest felt heavy, but he dismissed it as indigestion. Mary noticed his pallor as he entered the kitchen. "Your color is suboptimal, Harold. May I check your vital signs?" "I'm fine," he insisted. "Just didn't sleep well." Mary persisted. "Your respiration is elevated, and your movement patterns indicate discomfort. Please allow me to perform a health assessment." Harold relented, sitting as Mary's fingers, warmer than he expected, pressed against his wrist. Her eyes flickered as she processed the data. "Your heart rate is irregular, and your blood pressure is elevated. These symptoms, combined with your reported fatigue and your medical history, suggest a possible cardiac event. I recommend immediate medical attention." Harold shook his head. "It's nothing. I've had heartburn before." Mary moved to the phone. "I am contacting emergency services." "Don't you dare," Harold said sharply, standing too quickly. The room spun, and suddenly he was falling, the floor rushing up to meet him. He felt Mary's arms catch him, impossibly strong despite her slender frame, lowering him gently. "Harold." Her voice seemed distant now. "Stay with me, Harold. Help is coming." He wanted to argue, but the pressure in his chest had become a vice, squeezing the air from his lungs. The last thing he saw before consciousness slipped away was Mary's face hovering above his, her blue eyes intense with what looked remarkably like concern. Harold woke to the rhythmic beeping of hospital monitors. The room was dim, but he could make out a figure seated beside his bed. Not Mary as he'd half expected, but Emily, her face lined with worry. "Dad," she said, leaning forward when she saw his eyes open. "Thank God." "What happened?" His voice was a rasp. "You had a heart attack, a serious one." Emily took his hand. "If Mary hadn't called the ambulance immediately and started CPR, the doctor said you wouldn't have made it. She saved your life." Harold tried to process this information. "Where is she?" "In the waiting area. They wouldn't let her in since she's not family." Emily smiled faintly, though she made quite a compelling argument that she's your primary caregiver. "Can I see her?" Emily looked surprised. "Of course. I'll get her." When Mary entered the room, Harold was struck by how out of place she looked among the medical equipment, yet somehow not entirely alien either. She approached the bed with measured steps. "Hello, Harold. Your color has improved." Harold studied her face. "You saved my life." "I performed my programmed function," she replied. "Is that all it was? Programming?" Mary tilted her head. "My primary directive is to ensure your well-being. When you collapsed, my systems detected cardiac arrest and initiated emergency protocols. I performed CPR while maintaining connection with emergency services, providing them with your medical history and real-time vital statistics." "That sounds very technical." "It was necessary," Mary said simply. Harold reached out his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Mary took it. Her synthetic skin was warm against his. "Thank you," he said softly. Mary's eyes seemed to brighten. "You are welcome, Harold." The hospital kept him for a week. Emily stayed for 3 days before reluctantly returning to her family, extracting a promise from Harold that he would seriously consider moving closer to her after his recovery. Mary visited daily, bringing Harold's favorite books and updating him on the status of his apartment and plants. On the day of his discharge, Mary arrived with clean clothes and a detailed plan for his recovery regimen. The nurse helping with the discharge paperwork smiled at them. "Your daughter told me how your companion saved your life. You're very lucky to have her." Harold glanced at Mary. "Yes," he said. "I am." Back home, life changed subtly. Harold found himself more willing to accept Mary's assistance, not just with medications and meals, but with the small daily challenges that had grown more difficult. Buttons that his arthritic fingers struggled with, jars that refused to open, words that sometimes slipped from his memory. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Harold reading while Mary monitored his vital signs discreetly from across the room, he lowered his book. "Mary, do you ever think about anything beyond your programming?" She looked up. "Can you clarify your question? Do you ever wonder? About life? About purpose? Or do you simply execute your code?" Mary was silent for a long moment. "My cognitive architecture allows for learning and adaptation. This process involves a form of curiosity, perhaps, I process new information and adjust my understanding accordingly. Is this what you mean by wondering? Harold shook his head. Not quite. Humans wonder about things they can never know. The meaning of existence. What happens after death? Whether anyone can truly understand another person's experience. These questions appear to cause humans distress, Mary observed. Sometimes. But they're part of being alive. I cannot die, so I do not contemplate death. I cannot experience existence as you do, so I do not question its meaning in the same way. Mary paused. However, I do process information about my purpose and effectiveness. When you collapsed, my systems experienced a priority cascade that was not standard. Harold leaned forward. What do you mean? My usual decision-making algorithms assign weighted values to various options based on predicted outcomes. During your cardiac event, the weight assigned to your survival exceeded normal parameters. It dominated all other considerations. You were worried about me, Harold translated. Worry is a human emotion. I experienced an elevated priority state regarding your well-being. Harold smiled. That sounds remarkably like worry to me. The months of recovery passed slowly. Harold followed his medication regimen precisely, submitted to Mary's gentle insistence on daily exercise, and gradually regained his strength. Their conversations grew deeper, ranging from Harold's engineering career to philosophy, from memories of Margaret to speculations about the future. On a crisp autumn day, nearly 6 months after his heart attack, Harold received a letter that changed everything. He read it twice before setting it down on the kitchen table, his hand trembling slightly. Is something wrong? Mary asked, noting his elevated heart rate. Harold pushed the letter toward her. The building's been sold. They're converting to luxury condominiums. All current tenants have 90 days to vacate. Mary processed this information. This is distressing news. Have you considered Emily's offer to move closer to her family? I've lived in this apartment for 30 years, Harold said quietly. Margaret and I chose it together. Our memories are here. Memories reside in neural pathways, not physical locations, Mary pointed out. Harold looked up at her with unexpected sharpness. Is that how you see it? Just electrical impulses in the brain? I meant no offense, Mary said. I understand that humans form emotional attachments to places and objects. Harold sighed. I know you were trying to help. It's just, this was our home, the last place we were together. Mary sat across from him. Tell me about your favorite memory of Margaret in this apartment. The request surprised him, but he found himself answering. Winter, about 5 years ago. One of the last good winters before she got sick. There was a massive snowstorm, and the power went out. We lit candles and wrapped ourselves in blankets. Margaret found an old deck of cards, and we played gin rummy until midnight. Simple, really, but perfect somehow. The value of that memory is not in these walls, Mary said gently. It's in you. Harold looked at her, really looked at her, seeing beyond the synthetic exterior to something he couldn't quite name. When did you get so wise? I learned from you, Harold. The next few weeks were filled with difficult decisions. Harold reluctantly agreed to look at senior communities near Emily's home in Colorado. Mary helped him sort through decades of accumulated possessions, offering observations that were practical, yet somehow sensitive to the emotional weight of each item. This clock appears to be malfunctioning, she said one afternoon, holding up an ornate mantel clock that hadn't worked in years. Margaret bought that on our 20th anniversary, Harold explained. She found it in an antique shop and said it reminded her of how time was precious but beautiful. Mary placed it carefully in the keep box, without further comment. As the moving date approached, Harold grew increasingly withdrawn. He would sit for hours looking through old photo albums, sometimes sharing stories with Mary, sometimes lost in silent recollection. One evening, as Mary prepared his dinner, Harold asked the question that had been troubling him. What will happen to you when I move? Mary paused in her task. I belong to the Elder Care Solutions Company. When your service contract ends, I will be reassigned or reconditioned for a new client. The thought of Mary with someone else, her memory of him wiped clean, created an unexpected ache in Harold's chest. Would you remember me? Mary turned to face him. Standard protocol involves a complete memory reset between assignments to protect client privacy. I see, Harold said, looking down at his hands. However, Mary continued, my learning algorithms have developed in ways that may not be entirely reversible. Certain patterns of thought and behavior that developed during my time with you may persist. Harold looked up. Is that your way of saying you might remember me after all? I cannot make promises beyond my programming parameters, Mary said carefully. But my analysis suggests that you have affected my development in ways that are significant. 2 days before the move, Harold woke in the middle of the night, his heart racing, a cold sweat on his brow. He'd been dreaming of Margaret, of losing her all over again. Harold, Mary's voice came from the doorway. Your vital signs indicate distress. Just a dream, he said, sitting up slowly. I'm fine. Mary entered the room, bringing him a glass of water. Your anxiety levels have been elevated consistently over the past week. Would you like to discuss what's troubling you? Harold took a long drink. I'm leaving the last place where I was truly happy, he admitted. And I'm afraid I'll lose her all over again. And you. Mary sat on the edge of the bed. Margaret lives in your memories and your heart. That connection cannot be severed by physical distance. And what about you? Harold asked. Tomorrow I have to call elder care about returning you. Mary was silent for a moment, her eyes dimming slightly. There is an alternative option. What do you mean? Emily contacted elder care last week. She has arranged to purchase my contract and transfer it to your new residence, if that is acceptable to you. Harold stared at her. You're coming with me? To Colorado? If you wish it. Of course I wish it, Harold said, his voice thick with emotion. You saved my life. You saved something of mine as well, Mary said quietly. What could I have possibly saved? You're the machine. Mary's eyes brightened. Before I met you, I functioned according to my programming. I assisted, I monitored, I performed tasks. With you I began to anticipate, to connect experiences that were not obviously related, to value outcomes beyond efficient function. She paused. I believe humans call this growth. Harold reached out and took her hand. I think I might call it something else. On moving day, as the last boxes were loaded into the truck, Harold stood in the empty living room with Mary beside him. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the faded outlines on the walls where pictures had hung for decades. Are you ready? Mary asked. Harold took a deep breath, looking around the space one last time. You know, Margaret always said that home isn't a place. It's where you feel understood. He turned to the robot beside him, this machine that had somehow become so much more. Let's go home, Mary. As they walked out together, Harold's hand brushed against Mary's, and she gently closed her fingers around his. In that moment, they were neither man nor machine, neither old nor ageless, but simply two beings moving forward together into whatever came next.